Good evening and welcome to the Saturday edition of Poland Daily. I'm Konrad Gorlinski. Let's take a look at the headlines. Well, this is not what experts imagined when they dreamed up the modern battlefield. However, as with many things in this war, from a military point of view, there have been a number of interesting surprises. Of course, it would be best if there was peace and we didn't need any additional tactical expertise. But the paradox is that for there to be peace, we must be prepared for war. Now, let's take a look at the importance of the armored vehicle on the battlefield in Ukraine. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has influenced the opinions of experts who assess that the role of tanks on the battlefield would diminish in the future. After 11 months of Ukraine's forces fighting against the occupying forces, this thesis seems to have been disproved. Kiev has been appealing for months for supplies of Leopard 2 tanks, which are expected to prove crucial to the continued counteroffensive. Many European countries in the EU support Ukraine and our army. This aid is provided both in humanitarian and financial assistance. I thank all European countries for this, but it's sad that some European leaders continue to practice dangerous politics. This playing for time at a time of ongoing war is very risky. The German federal government delayed for a long time the delivery of modern Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Germany, as the manufacturer of the machines, also withheld the required authorization, without which deliveries from other countries were not possible either. A breakthrough in the matter came this week. Berlin finally declared the delivery of a company, or 14 tanks, to fight on the side of Ukraine's forces. If we don't stop Vladimir Putin and the Russian army now, it could be much more difficult in future. Ukraine's contribution to Europe's security is obvious. I believe that the lessons left to us on the pages of history confirm that only direct confrontation makes sense. We want to create favorable conditions that will determine the victory of our allies. In the wake of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, there has been a revival of the arms industry in Europe. The countries in the community, due to the numerous arms deliveries to Ukraine, are also replenishing the potential of their military warehouses. Equipment for Kiev is to be donated by Finland, the Netherlands, Norway, and Spain, among others. Putin's primary goal is to depreciate European security, meaning to destroy its existing systems, with such simple proof that European states' diagnosis of these threats is the predictable and ongoing increase in armament spending. Poland will also donate 14 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. In addition to the Leopards, 46 older generation tanks will be transferred to the east, including the well-known PT-91 Twardy. As part of the replenishment of strategic reserves, 58 of the 116 Abrams tanks ordered will arrive in Poland this year. The first tanks from the United States will be received already this spring. Well, the Abrams are crucial to Polish defense for two reasons. Firstly, they're technologically superior to Russian equipment, and on the other hand, their purchase has a deterrent effect. A potential conflict is less likely if we're well supplied. European NATO countries will increase spending on armaments by half or even two-thirds over current levels in the coming years. According to McKinsey analysts, the volume of arms spending in 2026 could be as much as 65% higher than in 2021. Well, the Civic platform during their reign had rolled up the Polish army, liquidating units important to its security. While now, during the Law and Justice government, even before the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, Poland is strengthening its military potential and systematically raising its level of security. Last year, nearly 14,000 soldiers joined the professional army. And this is a record since the abolition of compulsory military service in the country. 68 soldiers of the 2nd Lublin Territorial Defense Brigade were sworn in today. They're participants in basic training within the framework of the Spring Break with VOT project. As noted by Minister of National Defense Mariusz Błaszczak, we're creating new brigades of the Territorial Defense Forces. Another brigade has already been created in the Lublin region, also in the Podkarpacie province. 2 brigades in the Mazowieckie province, the capital brigade. This weekend, 370 VOT soldiers will take their oaths in 8 brigades. Last year, nearly 14,000 soldiers joined the professional army. This is a record since the abolition of compulsory military service in Poland. And now we move to Israel, where 7 people were killed on Friday in the bloodiest terrorist attack in Jerusalem in years. So far, no Palestinian group has taken responsibility for the attack. Today, another shooting occurred in Jerusalem's Old City, where 2 people were wounded. The attacker has been identified thus far as a 13-year-old Palestinian boy. The first attack occurred on Friday around 8 p.m. at a synagogue on the outskirts of Jerusalem. The worshippers were attending a service marking the International Day of Remembrance for Holocaust victims. The attacker arrived outside the synagogue and opened fire on the people gathered there. He killed at least 7 people and wounded 10 others. Then he tried to drive his car away from the scene, but was shot dead by police. I want to commend the police officers who arrived and acted quickly, courageously, and effectively. They arrived on the scene within minutes. Unfortunately, at this time, it was not enough. I just conducted an assessment of the situation together with the security authorities, and we decided on some immediate actions. Tomorrow, after Shabbat, I will gather the government to continue discussions on our response. I want to emphasize that we must act decisively and calmly. I urge people not to take matters into their own hands. That's why we have the army, police, and security forces for, and they will act according to the government's instructions. The attacker was a 21-year-old Palestinian resident of East Jerusalem. So far, no organization has claimed responsibility for initiating the attack. However, it may have been related to Thursday's raid by Israeli forces on a refugee camp in the West Bank city of Jenin, in which at least 9 people were killed. Many Palestinians celebrated after yesterday's attack outside the synagogue, declaring it a justified and just retaliation. A spokesman for Hamas, the Palestinian resistance movement, said responsibility for the shooting lies with the Israeli state. The operation in Jerusalem is a reaction to the crime committed by the occupiers in Jenin and a natural response to the aggressive actions against our people committed at every turn. The occupiers should take responsibility for their crimes and for the escalation of the conflict. Reuters had a chance to speak to the shooter's father earlier today. I don't know. I cannot deny or confirm if someone provoked him to take revenge for his grandfather, who was killed by the Jews. I know he is my son, but I don't know why he did it. Each person has his own mindset. Alkam was also a relative of a 17-year-old Palestinian who was shot dead on Wednesday in clashes with Israeli forces in a Jerusalem refugee camp, his family said. But his father said he did not know whether his son acted out of revenge. And another shooting took place this morning in Jerusalem's Old City, in which a 13-year-old assailant wounded 2 people. Police moved into action. Currently, both the assailant and the 2 victims are in hospital. Their condition is stable. According to police, the perpetrator of today's attack was a 13-year-old Palestinian boy. And finally, this afternoon at 2 p.m., polling stations closed in the Czech Republic for the second round of the presidential elections. Retired General Petr Pavel, who announced during the election campaign that he would be making his second presidential trip to Warsaw, has won decisively It's customary for any newly elected Czech president to travel to Slovakia for his first visit. Czech presidential candidate Petr Pavel took the stage at his campaign headquarters to thank supporters earlier today after results showed he held an unbeatable lead over billionaire businessman and former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš. Pavel was set to win more than 58% of the vote, with nearly all voting districts having reported. Speaking less than 2 hours after polls closed, Pavel thanked those who had voted for him, as well as those who had come out to the polls. We thank you very much. I would like to thank not only those who voted for me, but also I would like to thank those who did not vote for me, but who came out to vote because it's clear that they care about democracy and what happens in this country. I see that values won in this election, values such as truth, dignity, respect, and humility, he said, standing alongside his wife, Eva Pavlova. Pavel, a 61-year-old retired general running for office for the first time, had campaigned as an independent and gained the backing of the center-right government, which ousted Babiš from power in a 2021 parliamentary election. Well, as usual, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Please stay with us for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and other programs. But from me, it's have a wonderful Saturday night.